The chains were cold against the human's wrists as he was dragged into the great hall of the alien throne world. The walls were made of black stone, carved with glowing red symbols. Hundreds of alien nobles sat on tall seats, their eyes shining, watching the human like he was a toy. In the center, high above them all, sat Queen Xarla, the ruler of the Varnak Empire. Tall, proud, and full of hate, she leaned forward from her throne. Her crown was made of bone. Her armor pulsed with strange energy. Beside her, on a thick leash, stood something worse than death. Her beast, Torgax. It was taller than a tank, with burning yellow eyes, skin like armor plates, and teeth like swords. The beast growled low, waiting for her signal. The human stood straight. He was dirty, bruised, and wearing torn space gear, but his eyes were calm, too calm. He looked around at the strange faces, the powerful queen, and even the beast without fear. Queen Xarla's voice echoed across the hall. "Why aren't you trembling, human? One word from me, and my pet will devour you." The hall went silent. Some aliens smiled, thinking this would be quick. Others looked at the human with curiosity, wondering if he would cry, beg, or fall to his knees. But the human Eliz did. None of that. He didn't speak, he didn't move, he just looked at her. Calm, quiet, and steady. Queen Xarla's smile faded a little. She stood up slowly, her steps graceful but dangerous. She walked down from her throne, her heavy boots echoing in the silence. Torgax followed, its leash rattling like a warning bell. "You don't understand where you are," she said, standing just a few feet from Elias. "This is my world, my court, my power. Here, you are nothing. Just a broken animal, still." Elias said nothing. His silence was louder than any shout. The queen raised her hand. Her claws shimmered with dark energy. "I have ended kings, burned planets, and torn apart fleets," she said, her eyes narrowing. "And you, little human, stand here like you matter." She pointed at him sharply. "Torgax, kneel." The beast dropped to its knees with a thunderous thud, then looked up at the queen, waiting. Its mouth opened slowly, showing rows of razor teeth. Elias blinked once. His heart was racing inside, but outside, he showed nothing, not a single. "Tremble then," the queen whispered. "Attack." Torgax roared and took one step forward. The hall shook. Aliens gasped, some cheering already. But then something strange happened. The beast stopped. It froze mid-step. Its head turned slightly, its nose sniffing the air on Elias. Then it let out a low, confused growl. Queen Xarla frowned and shouted louder. "I said attack." The beast shook its head, backing up slightly. It looked nervous, almost afraid. Elias finally spoke. His voice was calm, cold, and full of something the aliens didn't expect. "I'm not like the others you've crushed," he said. "I'm not here by mistake." Whispers began spreading across the hall. Queen Xarla's face darkened. "You dare speak to me as if we are equal?" "I dare because I know who I am," Elias said, "and deep down, so do you." The beast took another step back, its eyes locked on Elias like it remembered something. Or someone. Queen Xarla looked down at Torgax, then back at the human. "Impossible," she whispered. Elias looked her in the eyes and said, "You ask why I don't tremble, but you should ask yourself why your beast does." The hall was silent again. No one moved, no one breathed. Then the queen shouted, "Guards, take him back to his cell." But even her voice had a crack in it now, like doubt had slipped into her heart as the guards dragged Elias away. Torgax didn't move, it just stared at the human as he passed. Watching him closely, something had changed, something had shifted. The crowd no longer looked at Elias like a bug. Now, they looked at him like a puzzle, a danger, a threat. And in Queen Xarla's mind, for the first time in years, a question began to grow. Who is this human, and why does my beast fear him? The guards threw Elias back into a cold steel cell. The walls buzzed with energy fields, meant to hold even the strongest alien warriors. The door closed with a loud thud, and silence returned. But Elias was not thinking about the cell. He was thinking about the beast. Torgax was more than a monster. It was a living weapon. Born in fire and trained by pain, the Varnak Empire had bred it in labs deep under their war moons. It could tear through tanks, smash through energy shields, and swallow soldiers whole. No army had survived once Torgax entered the battlefield, and yet it had stopped, not because of chains, not because of commands, but because of him. Elias sat on the metal bench, his hand still marked by the cold cuffs. He looked at the palm of his hand, where a strange faint glow shimmered for just a second before vanishing again. He didn't understand it yet, but something inside him had changed since landing on this planet. Meanwhile, in the throne room, Queen Xarla stood still beside her beast. Her fingers tapped against her armored wrist, eyes locked on the empty space where Elias had just stood. She could still feel it, the silence, the resistance. The challenger advisors approached with worry in their voices. "My queen," the beast hesitated. "That has never happened before." She turned sharply. "I know what I saw," she said, "and I want answers." They nodded and rushed to the lab to begin a scan of the beast's memory and the human's blood. She knelt beside Torgax and touched its face gently. "What did you see, old friend?" she whispered. "Why didn't you obey?" The beast gave a low growl, not in anger, but confusion. It pawed the floor, unsettled. Its eyes flicked to the door, as if it wanted to follow the human. For 20 years, Queen Xarla had ruled through fear and control. Her beast was the final word in every negotiation. It was the end of battles, the closer of deals, and now it had shown doubt in the royal lab. Machines scanned Elias's old armor, and a small drop of blood left behind on the floor. Lights blinked red. Screens showed strange results, symbols that did not match any human code known to the Varnak scientists. "What is this?" asked the lead biologist, his voice shaking. "This blood carries ancient markers, not just human, but something older." The screen zoomed in on the DN, a strand, something hidden inside. Like a key back in the cell, Elias leaned against the SIA wall, his eyes closed. In his dreams he saw flashes, visions he couldn't explain. A jungle moon, a warrior in glowing armor, a beast kneeling before him just like Torgax did earlier, and a voice whispering in his mind, "You were never lost, you were sent." He opened his eyes with a sharp breath. Something deep inside him was waking up, something that made even monsters pause. The door to his cell opened again. 2 guards stepped in, but they didn't carry weapons. Instead, they were followed by a small alien girl in a white lab coat. Her name was Lyra, one of the Queen's top researchers, but young and curious, not cruel like the others. "I asked to study him," she said simply. "Let me see what makes him different." Elias sat still as she scanned his body with a glowing blue device. The readings shocked her. "You carry a mark of control," she whispered. "A forgotten power once used by ancient rulers to command great beasts." Elias stared at her. "I don't understand what you mean." She looked at him, fear and awe mixing in her voice. "Your ancestors were more than explorers. They tamed monsters like Torgax, long before the Varnak Empire ever rose." Suddenly, alarms began to sound in the distance. Red lights flashed across the hallways. Elias stood up. The guards panicked, but Lyra whispered, "It's the beast. It's breaking free." Torgax was roaring in the throne room, pulling at its chains, not to escape, but to find Elias. The Queen shouted orders, but it ignored them, smashing pillars and shaking the entire palace. Its eyes were wild, but not violent. Lyra turned to Elias with a pale face. "It's calling for you," she said. "It wants you to come." Elias stepped forward, a strange strength in his steps. "Then take me to it," he said. "I need to know what it sees in me." Guards argued, but none dared to stop him, not after what they saw earlier, not with the beast breaking walls to get to him. As Elias walked through the halls toward the throne room, the aliens watching him did not laugh, did not whisper insults. Like before, now they stepped aside, uncertain, afraid, or perhaps hopeful. Queen Xarla stood with her sword drawn, shouting above the noise, "Obey me, Torgax. I created you, I own you." But the beast did not listen. It turned as Elias entered the room. Its glowing eyes locked onto him, and for a moment, the room went silent again, and then the impossible happened. Torgs lowered its head before Elias, not in anger, but in respect. The great throne room had never been so quiet, not even during war trials or executions. The sight of the beast Torgax kneeling before a human shook the very core of the Varnak Empire. Elias stood still, unsure of what to do, but also unafraid. His eyes met the Queen's, and for the first time, she looked unsure. Queen Xarla slowly lowered her weapon. Her voice was low, sharp, filled with disbelief. "You did something to it," she hissed. "You poisoned its mind. You used Tectric's lies." But Elias didn't speak. He didn't have answers, not yet. He looked at the beast, and the beast looked back, calm, focused, like it had found something it had lost. A long time ago, Lyra, the young alien scientist, rushed into the room with her scanning device still in hand. "It's not a trick," she said to the Queen. "The human carries a signal, something old, buried deep in his cells. It's not from this age." "What do you mean?" Xarla snapped, her voice rising. "He's a human born on a low-class world. They have no magic, no command." Lyra shook her head, her voice quiet. "He's more than that. This isn't tech, this is blood memory." The Queen's face twisted. "You're saying he was bred for this?" She growled. "That he's some kind of ancient key?" Elias blinked slowly. "I don't remember anything special about myself," he said. "I worked on a freighter. I lived alone. I was taken when my ship crossed your borders. Nothing about me is magic." Lyra walked closer, holding up her scanner. "But this inside you isn't new. It's old, ancient. Maybe your ancestors were part of something bigger, something forgotten by human history, something erased." The Queen turned away, her expression dark. "No," she whispered to herself. "It can't be true. The legends said the humans were once something dangerous, something the old ones feared." Elias stepped forward, past the stunned guards, past the shocked nobles. He stood beside Torgax and placed a single hand on the beast's thick neck. The moment he touched it, the room filled with a low, deep hum. Like power awakening from sleep, all lights flickered, the floor vibrated slightly, and the beast closed its eyes, peaceful. The Queen stepped back, her mind racing, memories crashing into her like waves long ago when she was young. Her father had told her bedtime stories, not about kings and treasure, but about a lost bloodline, a people who could bend monsters with will alone. Those stories were warnings. "Do you know the name Chiron?" the Queen asked slowly, eyes locked on Elias. He shook his head. She stared at him coldly. "He was the only being who ever defeated the Varnak without war. He walked into battlefields alone, and the beasts turned on their masters. They bowed to him, just like yours did." Lyra gasped. "Chiron wasn't just a myth then," she said. "He was real. And if Elias carries his blood, that would make him the heir." The Queen finished, her voice hollow. "The last one left." Suddenly, guards moved to grab Elias, but Torgax growled, lifting its giant body in defense. A single glare from the beast sent them all stumbling back, weapons lowered. "I didn't ask for any of this," Elias said. "But I'm not going to die here either. If this thing listens to me, then maybe I can finally get answers. Maybe I can survive this place." Queen Xarla turned away, walking back toward her throne, but slower this time, weaker somehow. "Take him to the inner chamber," she ordered. "I want to know everything before I decide what to do with him." 2 elite guards walked over, followed by Lyra. They did not chain Elias this time. They simply walked beside him, quiet, respectful or afraid, as they moved through the tall golden halls. Lyra leaned closer. "I think your blood unlocked something inside Torgax, but that's only the beginning," she said. "There are records, hidden ruins, places even the Queen fears. If you really are Chiron's blood, then the galaxy isn't ready for what comes next." Elias looked ahead, his jaw clenched. "Then it's time I find out who I really am." Back in the throne room, Queen Xarla sat in silence. Her hand rested on the beast's old leash. Now useless, her mind swirled with fear and memories of old threats she thought were gone forever. And somewhere in the dark corners of the palace, an old spy activated a hidden communicator, whispering into the void, "The air is alive and the monster has returned." The inner chamber of the palace was different from the rest of the grand halls. It was quiet, dark, and filled with relics from the past, statues, armor, old scrolls, and bones of creatures long dead. Elias stood in the center, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. Torgax waited outside, too large to enter, but still watching the door like a silent guardian. Lyra moved carefully around the room, her fingers brushing over the old stone walls. "This place is forbidden to most," she whispered. "Even the queen rarely enters it." Elias turned slowly. "Why bring me here then?" She looked at him. "Because you're not most people anymore." In a hidden corner of the room, an old hollow projector flickered to life as Lyra pressed a panel. A blue image shimmered into the air, revealing an old memory file, a much younger Queen Zarla stood on a battlefield. Her armor was damaged, her left arm bleeding. She looked scared, almost human. Behind her stood a creature even bigger than Torgax, its body burning with rage. It was not under control. It rampaged across the field, destroying everything friend and foe in the recording. The young Kazarla screamed for help, but no one came. Her army had broken. Her commanders were dead. Then, through the smoke, a figure appeared, a tall warrior in white and silver armor. Glowing softly, the figure raised a hand and the beast stopped just like that. The alien monster froze, then lowered its head to the armored figure. The field went quiet, even the winds paused. Lyra whispered, "That warrior was Chiron." Elias stared, eyes wide. "That's him?" "Yes," she nodded. "And this recording is one of the Queen's darkest secrets. She owes her life to a human she now claims to hate." The memory faded into darkness. Elias sat down slowly on a nearby bench. His heart beat faster. "She knows who I am. Or at least what I carry inside me," he said. "And that's why she's afraid." Lyra stepped forward, placing a small crystal in his hand. "This contains data from Chiron's armor," she said. "I found it in the ruins 2 years ago. I wasn't supposed to keep it, but something told me it mattered." Elias felt the crystal warm in his hand. His body reacted strangely. His skin shimmered for a second, and the same soft glow from the battlefield memory pulsed through his veins. He looked at Lyra with wide eyes. "It's waking up," Lyra nodded. "You're not just a descendant, Elias. You're the key to something bigger. Chiron didn't just tame beasts. He united worlds, broke empires, and vanished without a trace." Meanwhile, back in the throne room, Queen Zarla stood alone, staring at the broken leash of Torgax. She touched her chest, over a scar left long ago. From the day she nearly died, her guards watched her from a distance, unsure whether to approach. One of her old advisors finally stepped forward, a thin alien with pale skin and wise eyes. "My queen," he said gently. "He is the heir, isn't he?" Zarla didn't speak at first, then slowly said, "Yes, the signs are all there. The beast obeys him. The light is in him, and the past is returning to haunt me." The advisor leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You owe your life to his bloodline. Will you still choose war?" Her eyes narrowed, sharp as blades. "I can't let the past rise again," she said. "Chiron was a symbol of hope for humans, and danger for rulers like me. If Elias becomes what Chiron was, the galaxy will change, and my rule will end." She turned away, walking down a secret path behind the throne. Her destination, a forbidden vault known only to her back in the inner chamber. Elias placed the crystal into a small slot in the wall. It unlocked a panel filled with ancient writings and glowing patterns. Lyra gasped as the symbols lit up. "These are commands," she said. "Instructions to awaken the old power inside you." Before Elias could speak, the doors burst open. A rebel group of alien soldiers rushed in, led by a tall red-skinned warrior with one glowing eye. He pointed at Elias and said, "You are the heir of Chiron. We've been waiting for you." Elias stood up slowly. You know me? The warrior nodded. Not you, but your blood, for generations. We waited for Kiran's return, and now here you are. Lyra stepped in front of Elias. He's not ready, she warned. His powers are still waking. But the warrior smiled. Then we'll help him, because the queen will never allow him to live. Elias looked at the open door, then at the glowing wall. He knew he couldn't turn back now, not after what he had seen, not after what he had become. As the rebel soldiers bowed before him, the beast outside let out a low growl, not a warning, but a promise. Something old had returned, and the queen was no longer the only one with power. The palace shook as deep growls echoed through its ancient walls. Outside the chamber, Torgax stood motionless, staring into the distance like it could feel something approaching. Something powerful, something familiar. Elias walked slowly into the royal courtyard, guided by Lyra and the red-skinned warrior named Varn. The rebel soldiers followed closely, ready for anything. The queen's guards had vanished from these halls. Some had fled, others had joined the rebellion after witnessing what happened with the beast. Varn turned to Elias and spoke softly. This is where your power must be revealed. The old blood inside you, it's time to let it speak. Elias looked unsure. But then his eyes locked onto Torgax waiting in the center of the courtyard. The beast didn't roar or snarl. Instead, it lowered its head as Elias came closer, like a loyal creature waiting for its commander. A crowd began to gather. Alien nobles, slaves, and soldiers all stepped out from hiding, their eyes wide with disbelief. For years, they had watched the queen rule through fear, using Torgax as her hammer. But now the beast knelt not to her, but to a human. Queen Xarla stood on the upper balcony, her armor gleaming with red light, her face twisted with anger. Her voice rang through the air. Get away from my creature, human. Elias did not move. Xarla raised a sharp finger toward him. You think a few rebels and an old bloodline make you king? She shouted, you are nothing. I own this world. I forged this empire with pain and war. You are just a flicker of old fire, and I will put it out. Varn shouted back. Then why does the beast kneel to him, and not you, queen? Xarla's eyes flared with rage. Her hands sparked with dark energy. She pulled a small cube from her belt and crushed it in her hand. A pulse of red light shot into the air, activating hidden weapons all around the courtyard. Laser turrets and heavy drones dropped from the sky. The crowd screamed and scattered. But Torgax did not move. Elias stood still, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. His heart beat faster, his skin glowed faintly. He reached out his hand toward the beast. Torgax growled softly, then lifted one claw and placed it gently against Elias's palm. At that moment, everything changed. A wave of invisible force shot outward, knocking back drones, shattering stone, and freezing the queen's turrets in midair. The glow from Elias's body spread across the ground in bright patterns, symbols lost to time. Language older than any scroll. Queen Xarla stumbled backward, her voice shaking. No. That power should have died with Chiron. But Lyra shouted back. It didn't. It was passed on, hidden in human blood, waiting for the right soul to awaken it. Elias turned slowly to face the queen. His voice was calm but strong. You built your empire on fear, but I carry something stronger. Xarla laughed bitterly. What hope? No, Elias said. Honor. Torgax let out a loud, deep roar, not of anger, but of challenge. It turned to the palace gates and roared again. The sound echoed across the mountains, and every soldier who heard it felt the call of something. Ancient more rebels began to arrive, their symbols marked with the same patterns that now glowed on the courtyard floor. One by one, they bowed to Elias, not because he asked, but because they believed. As Xarla gritted her teeth, she jumped down into the courtyard, her armor glowing red-hot. Then prove it, she growled. Command the beast to kill me. The crowd gasped. Elias stared at her, then looked at Torgax. The beast waited, silent, ready, but Elias lowered his hand. No, he said. You want me to be like you, but I won't. Xarla's power flickered. Her fury became confusion. Why? Elias took a step forward. Because strength isn't in killing. It's in choosing not to when you could. It's in knowing when to stop the cycle. The queen dropped her sword. Her knees hit the stone floor, not in pain but in disbelief. Her beast had left her. Her people had turned, and her greatest weapon now protected her enemy. Torgax walked forward, slowly placing its huge body between Elias and Xarla, not to kill her, but to guard both of them from what might come next in the silence. Varn raised his fist to the sky. "The heir has returned," he shouted. "The tide has turned." The crowd erupted in cheers, rebels, former slaves. And even alien nobles raised their voices. Some cried, some knelt, others simply watched in awe. Elias turned to Lyra, his voice quiet. "I don't know what comes next, but I know this earth didn't send me. Destiny did." Lyra smiled. "Then, maybe it's time to finish what Chiron started." The beast roared one last time. A sound of victory, not of violence, and the stars above seemed to listen. The palace gates were wide open now, and the sky above was no longer silent. Rebel ships flew low over the towers, sending bright lights across the night sky. The banners of Queen Xarla were being torn down, replaced by strange new flags, old symbols that hadn't been seen for 1,000 years. Elias stood on the steps of the royal court, the massive beast Torgax beside him. Lyra and Varn stood nearby, watching as more people entered the courtyard. The city was waking up, not just in fear, but in fire. The queen had lost more than her beast. She had lost the fear that once held everyone in place. The nobles no longer bowed to her name. The soldiers no longer obeyed without question. Whispers spread across the empire, carried by wind and voice. "The heir has returned." In the throne room, Queen Xarla watched her kingdom crumble from the shadows. Her generals argued behind her, some shouting to attack, others begging her to flee. But she said nothing. Her eyes stared at a small crack in the marble floor, a crack caused by Elias's arrival. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet but sharp. "They think I'm finished. They think a human boy, an old monster, will break what I built." The room fell silent. She stood, armor glowing red again. Her face was pale but determined. "Then let's show them what Varnak fury looks like." Meanwhile, down below, Lyra worked quickly to unlock the palace archives. "These files are ancient," she said. "Chiron left messages here, maps, secrets, even warnings about what would come after him." Elias watched her fingers move across glowing panels. "Did he know this would happen?" "I think he planned for it," Lyra answered. "Maybe he knew his bloodline would return someday, to stop something even worse than the queen." Elias felt the energy in his chest grow again. It was strange, like an engine inside him was warming up, piece by piece. He wasn't just leading a rebellion. He was becoming something else outside the palace. Rebel forces had taken control of the towers and streets, but they didn't cheer yet. They knew the queen wouldn't fall without one last fight, and they were right. Suddenly, a sharp tremor shook the ground. A massive red shockwave exploded from the highest tower. Blades of energy sliced through the air, knocking ships out of the sky. A roar not from Torgax, but from the queen's last weapon shook the stars. From the tower emerged a mechanical creature, unlike any other, taller than even Torgax, covered in red metal armor, driven by pain and rage. Queen Xarla stood atop it, holding a dark crystal in her hand. "This is my answer." "Elias," she shouted from above. "This is what true power looks like." The machine beast slammed into the courtyard, scattering rebels and soldiers alike. Torgax stepped forward, roaring in return. The two monsters stood facing each other, past versus future. Elias stepped forward too, and shouted, "This ends tonight." He placed a hand on Torgax's side. The beast glowed with blue fire as Elias's energy flowed into it. The connection between them was now comparable to Torgax charged. The two giants collided in a storm of claws and steel, shaking the palace down to its roots. Rebels watched from behind cover, too stunned to speak. The fight was not just between beasts, it was a war of symbols, of legacy. As they battled, Elias climbed a shattered stairway toward the queen, who still stood atop the machine. Her eyes met his, no longer calm, no longer royal, only desperate. "Why are you doing this?" she shouted. "You could rule beside me. You have power. You have blood. Be my heir instead of Chiron's echo." Elias climbed higher, step by step. His voice was calm. "Because I'm not here to rule. I'm here to free them from fear, from you." The queen screamed and raised the crystal high. But Elias was faster. He grabbed her wrist, and the moment his hand touched hers, the crystal cracked. A blinding flash of blue light shot through the Skydergax, let out a final victorious roar as the machine fell back, sparks flying from its joints, and crashed into the palace wall. Sarla fell to her knees. Her crystal turned to dust. The machine beast shut down behind her. Broken and silent, Elias looked down at her, breathing heavy. "It's over," he said. "You can't stop the change anymore." The queen looked up at him, no longer angry, just tired. "Then do what you came to do." But Elias shook his head. "No," he said. "I'll let the people decide what to do with you. That's the difference between us." Cheers erupted from below as the rebels saw their queen defeated. Ships hovered in the sky, releasing lights like fireworks. The people didn't cheer just for victory. They cheered for something new. Something better. Lyra joined Elias at the top of the ruined stairs. "You've done it," she said, smiling. "No," Elias replied. "We've just started." The smoke had begun to clear. The fires that once lit the royal towers were dying slowly in the cold morning wind. Above the broken palace, the sky turned soft gray as the sun rose for the first time on a new empire. Elias stood at the edge of the queen's ruined balcony. Below him, the city stretched out like a battlefield turned garden. Rebel flags waved across towers, and alien citizens, once afraid to speak, now walked freely through open gates. Beside him stood Lyra, her eyes full of wonder and exhaustion. Varn stood on the stairs, injured but smiling, and just behind them, like a silent statue of power, Torgax lay curled in rest, its mission complete, its rage tamed by something greater than control. Queen Sarla sat in chains on the throne she once ruled with fear. She didn't scream or fight now. Her face held no pride, only silence. The people had not killed her. Elias had made sure of that. The courtyard was full, packed with aliens of every rank and race, waiting for the new leader to speak, not with threats, but with purpose. Elias stepped forward. He looked down at Gazarla, then at the crowd, and finally up at the sky. The stars above looked quiet again, like they were listening. He raised his voice. "You all asked one question when I came here." Elias said, "Why didn't I tremble?" The wind answered with silence, "Because I knew that fear is a choice." Elias continued, "And I chose not to give her mine." The crowd listened in stillness. "You were ruled by fear," he said. "Every one of you, you were told to obey, to kneel, to follow because of pain and power and punishment. But today, you chose to stand." He turned toward Torgax, who slowly lifted its head and looked out across the people. "This creature was once used to force you into silence," Elias said. "But even it knew when it was time to bow to something different, something stronger." Someone in the crowd shouted, "To the heir of Chiron." Others began to chant, but Elias raised a hand. "No," he said, "I am not your king. I am not your master. I am only proof that one word spoken with courage is stronger than any weapon." He paused, letting his words settle. "I give you that word now." Elias said, his voice firm, "that from this day forward, no beast, no ruler, no empire shall decide your worth." He looked at the queen. Even she, who once held the power to destroy worlds, now stands where you once stood chained. Quiet, unsure, Xarla said nothing, but her eyes were wet, maybe with anger, maybe with truth. The crowd exploded into cheers, some crying, some singing. They had waited so long for this, not just for victory, but for meaning. Lyra stepped beside Elias. "What now?" she asked softly. Elias looked across the land. "Now they write their own story," he said, "without chains, without monsters, without fear. Varn approached, holding a small case in his arms. Inside was a scroll wrapped in gold thread. "It's Chiron's final record," he said. His last message before he vanished. Elias opened it and read the first line aloud. "One word from the heart can silence 1,000 weapons." He smiled and handed it to Lyra. "This belongs to the people now, far in the sky." The first peace vessel from Earth appeared, arriving late but not forgotten. The humans had received the signal sent weeks ago when Elias first awoke the power inside him. They had come not as soldiers, but as witnesses as Elias waved once toward the ship, knowing someone up there was watching, maybe even waiting to welcome him back, but he didn't move. This was home now as the crowd danced and sang in the palace square. A small alien child walked up to Torgax and touched its claw. The beast looked down and made a soft purring sound. The child laughed. That single moment spread faster than any order ever could. The symbol of fear had become a symbol of peace. One word had done what war never could, and it had come from a human. Elias sat quietly at the edge of the old throne, not to rule, but to rest. Around him, the people began building not walls or weapons, but gardens, schools, homes. A new empire was rising, not with fire, but with choice.